Andy Fenton.
Mr. Whitten, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, my friend.
It's a good day.
It is. I can see that that's a glass of wine this time. Back on the grapes, not on the green juice this time. The red juice rather than green juice.
Maybe just one glass. Maybe just one glass.
A cheeky one glass.
A cheeky one glass for a little while.
Oh, great. Good to see you, my friend. Great to hang out with you on a Friday. We've got a few people in the house already grabbing a wine. Got to grab your wine, absolutely. Whoever's that, you're probably in one of the groups. We can't see your name. Facebook's doing some strange stuff. G'day, Ben. Good to see you, mate. Welcome along. There's Lauren. There's Brooke. A few people in the house with us, Andy. So that's great.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Welcome one and all. And it's been a big week. It's been budget week this week. So all of you who are out there, it'd be interesting to see what your questions are before we get kicking off. Of course, introduce yourself, say g'day, call us sexy beasts like Craig. And obviously he's had far too much wine already today.
Thanks, Craig. He's on the wine already. Yep, exactly.
But shoot through any questions you've got in and around the budget that has been, and we'd be happy to answer through them tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a big one. We've got a big one this week. We'll have a good yarn about the budget. Anything there, like Andy said, chuck any questions you've got in the chat. For those who are joining us for the first time, maybe watching this on the replay or stumbling across it, welcome. Andy Fenton across there, as you can see, in the little blue name badge. Jason Whitten here. And both of us have been chatting about our respective professional worlds, property and the world of finance, banking and the share market for over a year now, with our respective crews, tribes, sharing our wisdom, we believe, sometimes a little bit more wine than wisdom. But we'll see what we can do. So welcome along, those returning, and welcome those who might be finding us for the first time. Oh, I've got a caller. That's my wife. She's trying to catch me, but I'll let her know I'm on the Wealth, Wine and Wisdom. We've got stuff to do, Andy, today.
We do, but before we get into introductions for both of us, I think that it's if you've got your little sound effects reel there, I think it's a big happy birthday for one of the special people in our lives. So happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, Mrs. Whitten. Happy birthday to you. It's a big happy birthday to the amazing Shay Whitten. Not today, it was earlier on in the week. But we're all sending our love and best wishes. And on Sunday, goodwill for the hangover.
Yeah, we've got a party tomorrow night, which is excellent. So yes, absolutely. Happy birthday, my love. But Andy, what do we got on the menu today? Plenty of discussion points to sink our teeth into on the budget, which will be super cool. I've got a few things that have popped up in the last week to go through what's in the news, bits and pieces. But where do you want to go? Should we kick off with what's in the budget right now? I think that'd be a good thing to sink our teeth into, or do you want to leave that till a bit later for those listening in to maybe put some questions in the chat about the budget potentially? What are your thoughts?
Let's give them time to pontificate what their questions are on the budget. It always takes the participants a while to warm up, but now that we're back on Fridays, I'm sure that they're warming up with a glass of wine or their respective beverage, so they'll be a little bit more confident to shoot them forward. So maybe we'll start off with what's in the news. But before we do, for those of you who are first-time listeners, Jason Whitten, or as he's also known as Jason Fenton and Andy Whitten, sometimes interchangeable, but old Jace is a lifetime in residential property, education, purchasing, developing, all things property. If there's something about property that is worth knowing, it is locked up in Jason's brain, and he shares it literally every single morning with his mentored clients from around Australia and New Zealand, which is quite incredible, and quite often shares it with the public. And Wine and Wisdom is a place where Jason and I get to delve into Jason's brain and hear about what's going on in the news, what people should know that relates to the property world, and I try and drop a few nuggets from my respective world of banking, corporate finance, investment banking, share market, and business advisory. And this started in the beginning of the pandemic, where there was legislation dropping left, right, and centre, and nobody knew their ass from their elbow, including us, which is why Jackson and I called each other every Friday and dissected the changes that were coming through thick and fast. And we decided to share that with you openly. And that became Wealth, Wine and Wisdom, which we're here doing today. And although we don't have as much legislation dropping day to day, we still have as much to talk about. And really our aim is to bring as much value to your lives as we possibly can. And the more that you interact with us, the more value we're going to be able to bring with you personally. So let us know you're there. Light up the boards with the likes and the loves and the g'days, and let us know that you're here. And please, any questions, shoot them through over the course of the day. So, Big J, what's been going on in the news recently?
Well, I've got a few things, but before we do, we've got our first. There's Craig, mate. Good to see you, mate. We've got our first YouTube visitor, Pawan. Welcome from YouTube. Most of the time, we get people dialing in from Facebook, but great to have you here on the live today. That's awesome. Good to see. We've got a few people dropping by. Zara saying hello. Jeremy showed up, which is awesome. Fantastic. And Kelly saying hello as well. So great to have all of you guys here. And Laura's just got her wine, so she's settling in. She's ready to roll, which is awesome. And Jane's a bit bummed. She can't have any wine. She's still at work, but you might be able to catch up a bit later on, Jane, when you get out of work. So which is good. So, listen, one of the things in the news right now for me, Andy, and for property investors to keep an eye on, I've been talking about this, maybe just mentioning it once or twice in the past, few weeks. And it's the idea that there might be some little bits of, noise starting to take place when it comes to the idea of tightening some of the lending to slow down a hot property market. Now, I think the hot property market's going to continue to go, and I'll show you a few little things in a little minute. But I think what's on the table and what's off the table for this stuff right now. This is about the fourth or fifth article that's come through talking about, all right, well, the government might want to intervene. Someone might want to intervene in the property market because it's got a good head of steam and it's going to continue to roll. And I'll show you a little bit about why I think it's going to continue to roll in a minute, folks. But what could happen, we can take some lesson from our Anzac neighbours, the New Zealanders, and if anyone from NZ on the live right now, give us a shout out. But in New Zealand, they haven't messed with the interest rates. They have messed with the ability for people to borrow, loan to value ratios. So what's off the table? Let me do this. What's off the table is interest rates. They are not going to be touched. Okay, no one's going to be messing with interest rates. Interest rates are going to be low for at least 4 to 5 years. That's the call. Out on the street, we had one of Australia's best regarded property economists on the other night with some of our members, Andy, and his name's Dr. Andrew Wilson, and he reinforced exactly what you and I have been talking about for many months now. Interest rates are going to be low for a while. Many other countries around the world, you've said it many times, places like Japan and other places around the world have reached this zero or close to zero interest rate era and have been there for Japan's been there for over a decade, has it not?
And the currency crisis, absolutely.
Yeah. So, there's no reason, and the government does not want to scare anybody, especially people who are pouring in first home buyers into the home market right now. They don't want any of those people being wobbly when it comes to economic capacity, their home loans. They want Australians to be confident. They want Australians to have spare cash. They want Australians to consume and spend money and get back to work That's what they want. And if you mess with interest rates, that wobbles everybody in the marketplace. All right. So what won't be on the market or won't be on the cards is interest rate rises. That's not going to happen. But what may happen is loan to value ratios might decrease. Right now, you can get a 98% loan if you're a first home buyer. Okay. And so those are the sort of the percentages that, Andy, you and I haven't seen for a long time, probably since pre-GFC, when it comes to this world of lending and property investing. So I think they will reduce the loan-to-value ratios. Over in New Zealand, they restricted loan-to-value ratios to 80% on new properties only. And when you wanted to release equity, getting equity out, they restricted it to 60% at equity releases. So that's how they tried to slow that market down in New Zealand. So, I think that is probably what will happen maybe in the future if the property market continues to run, get a bit of a head of steam. And I think for the moment, that the pressure on that property market for it to continue to roll is there in spades. The gap between interest rates and cash rates is pretty large, Andy. I did this one the other day with my crew. I did this one in one of my morning chats, and we talked about the gap between, this is the cash rate, less than 1%. And this is a rental yield, let's say on an apartment in Brisbane. And the gap between those is absolutely astronomical, 5% plus. And, for the first time in many, many, many decades, that gap is large. And this is where cash, you and I have talked about it before, cash is trash. And that money, cash, will come out. And what will happen, I talked about this, Andy, we call it yield compression in the world of property. Cash is trash. We call it yield compression in the world of property. The closing of the gap between the true costs, probably about 3.5% right now if you average it out for a loan, and 5.5%, that's a net 2% minus some costs. It's pretty good at the moment. So I think the marketplace will continue to run and that gap, because I believe a lot of cash, Andy, this is what I believe. I believe a lot of cash will come out of the world of bonds and other investments that you have mentioned many times before, which are called defensive. And I think they'll look for residential as a safe haven. And I think they'll buy in cash, Andy. And they can, if you're getting 0.5% in the bank and you're competing with a piece of real estate and you ended up, I'll end up with a net yield or gross yield of 3%. That's better than the bank. Someone with cash can pay more for the property than someone with leverage, right? So I believe if the big chunks of cash are coming out into the market, I think it's still got a way to go. I think that'll be a secret pusher as well for the right quality of property as we look into the marketplace. So, a couple of things in the news this week when it comes to real estate in general. We've got some stuff to talk about with real estate and property investing in the budget, but I'll leave that till a little bit later. But they're the two, Andy, that I believe will continue to push us along. And I'll just show this for shits and giggles. Check this out. This was interesting. I grabbed this today. This was the 10-year or since 2005 to 2019, the bonds, global bonds and cash return, average return. And I wonder what that's going to be going forward. I think that'll be an absolute disaster. So, well, there you go. So, yep, I think there'll be more cash than you can poke a stick at in the property market, which will continue to push that property market along. And also, while we have it, access to easy lending and low interest rates are going to fuel that also. And the government is still got some reasonable incentives for you as a first-home buyer to get into the market. So I think that construction boom will push things along, and we'll talk about that also maybe a little bit later on, because the cost of construction has already started to skyrocket, especially in single standalone housing, Andy. It's almost up 20%. Multi-density housing, because it uses a bit more concrete and other things that are more localized, but timber and other things that we build houses out of, standalone houses out of, those things are pushing the prices already. So it's an interesting one, but there's the couple of quick ones of what's in the news for me this week, Andy. But what about you? What do you got for us?
Well, mate, all of my focus this week's all been about budget. So I really haven't been taking too much notice of the rest of the market, other than we talked about Bitcoin and crypto over the last couple of weeks, and saw astounding crashes in the market over the last 48 hours. Must have been because I told you it was heavily media bound, a lot of the trading on these platforms, and we talked about it and we crushed the market, Jason. We spoke about it. We had a big impact on the crypto market.
Well, I do know, Andy, part of the news was that, Elon did a tweet saying, yeah, we're not going to buy any more Bitcoin because of the environmental impact. And that had a bit of an emotional reaction in the marketplace. So there you go.
Shit. What a load of horseshit. Anybody who wants an interesting little look, go and have a look at the Saturday Night Live skit that Musk did on there. Mate, if there isn't a person who is just sitting there kind of taking the piss at the rest of the world with this sort of stuff, then I don't really know who is. I think he actually showed a little bit of a side of himself that you don't normally see.
How about this, Andy? This is an interesting one. Maybe a little bit off script today. The idea of insider trading. We're marching to a tune here.
Nobody sent it to me.
But yeah, how about this, right? So I'm curious about the idea that that someone like Elon or someone else could make some comments in that sort of space, and have some investments in it, make a comment, and those markets move significantly. I would say in the hundreds of millions or many millions, and it goes down quick, it goes up quick. How's that managed? I don't know. Like, is that close to the world of? Is that close to the line of insider trading or manipulating markets, or how does it work?
If it happened in normal exchanges, yeah, it'd be under SEC in the US. He'd be done in Australia. Market manipulation, 100%. So if it was done on a regulated exchange, it's not legal, or allegedly, right? I don't believe it would be legal. That's my belief.
Jeremy said it's like, it's almost market manipulation.
It is 100% market manipulation. No shadow of a doubt. It's 100% market manipulation, and maybe disguised up as other things. But look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but generally when the data starts to look like a duck, quack like a duck, walk like a duck, it's a fucking duck. And in my world, if it is not, it is just some very unusual coincidences of which I've never seen in my entire life. So, but you know what? When you can dump billions of dollars in and out of markets, you can manipulate them extraordinarily well when they're not regulated, which is the wild, wild west. And that's what we're seeing. I think somebody did tweet there. Yes, it was up 12%. I think it was down 30% over, 24 hours after the Saturday Night Live. Prove it, says Heidi. And here's the thing: when you don't have regulators, there's really not a huge amount to prove. Heidi
was saying, well, how do you prove it? Not proceed it, but how do you prove it? which is interesting. Well, and that's it. And that, it's an interesting game, and if you're in that space of trading things, well, you've got to understand the game you're playing, I suppose, Andy. If you're going to be in that unregulated space, it's a bit wilder. When everybody sells, it's time to buy. And if you can handle the ups and downs, like we said last week, in the marketplace, sometimes it might be something you learn to do. For me, certainly, it wouldn't be my major wealth activity. It'd be a side hustle wealth activity. But I know a lot of people, making a couple of bucks out of it as they're going along. But again, it's trading, not investing. As in, you and I talk about investing. We're a little bit more conservative and old school. We're talking about buying things to keep for a long time. Like my world, which is, trading is like property developing. Your world might be, buying and selling whatever stocks, quite liquid, nice and fast. Those two worlds are not our speciality. They're not our number one preferred places to live. But certainly we've seen some interesting experiences in our 20 years in our respective industries in this space.
Look, all I did was from last week, literally, as I said last week, I said it's one of my thoughts is that it's a media controlled market. So as soon as I saw the negative come out, just dumped everything. And when saw a couple of little green ticks this morning, bought back in with a couple of news. So all of a sudden I'm up 78% in 1 week, like just literally by trading newspapers. And look, I'm just stuffing around with it. But to me, it's a gamble, right? Because it could have gone either which way. There was really no substance to what I did other than what one of my beliefs are at the moment is that the Wild Wild West, which is the coin currency market, is if you trade common belief or if you trade market commentary, being tweets and the powers that be, then you'll make money. But to me, that's one hell of a gamble, because when they start to go and they want to start to manipulate it in their fashion against that way, they're smart enough to know that if they tweet in a certain direction, they'll go in a certain direction. And then when they need it to go the opposite way, they'll tweet the right thing in order to do the wrong thing in order to be in the right space. And that's just what we've seen before in the days of allegedly Renee Rivkins of the world. Equity markets were very similar to this at some point in time in history, and still remember many of the stories as I was growing up about these sorts of things. So, as I say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it's an incredible mimic, and I believe that this is a new mimic. Yeah.
I do remember quite by accident many years ago when we first started out. We were looking, Sam and I started in positive cash flow mining towns in 2001. And there was literally a mining boom from like 2003 to 2008 or 9. Well, actually till 11 or something. It went forever and a day. But we got involved in these mining towns, or towns that were influenced by mining. You could buy a house for 30 grand and it was renting for $150 a week. The yield was like 25%. It was crazy. And we had a pretty good database. Actually, I'll tell a quick story. I back in the day when realestate.com first launched, which was 2003, I signed up for realestate.com and I put fake property listings all over realestate.com in every single suburb of Australia. And I built a database, like I hacked realestate.com. I built a database of property investors, like super fast. About 30,000 people got on my database within about a month. And realestate.com, they found out who I was, and they banned me. So I couldn't use realestate.com for a decade. I was no shit. Because I hacked their system. But what I did do, anyway, it was the Wild West.
It was
the arbitrage. It was something that shouldn't have been done. But we were just mad and young, and So then what I did was I emailed those 30,000 people going, hey, this mining town you've never heard of is absolutely going off. You should buy there. And every single mining town that we did that about literally boomed afterwards. And there was one place called Ayr in Queensland that I said, watch this, Sam. We'll send this email. And we sent the email, and the town went up 50% in 12 months. Yeah, it was insane. And it was because of that time where, unless you were physically driving around, you didn't know any towns. And it was this first time ever that you could get access to this information about property, at a decent speed if you had the internet, back then in 2003. But anyway, I think we did some insider trading that would have been illegal in the share market, but it was perfectly fine in the property market, But anyway, well, yeah.
I'm not sure if I've ever heard of inside trading on property, but mate, this is what can happen in unregulated space. Really rare for it to happen in places like property, because it's so illiquid, right? You can't trade so quickly.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a few chats popping up in our chat feed. Just be kind to each other, people. We're actually just having a bit of a laugh at the old Bitcoin side of the equation. I know a lot of people take it all seriously in the currency, and so you should. We believe that it's a solid part of the future, but just be kind, because we're just having a little bit of a laugh. We're not endorsing or anything like that. We're novices in the market, and we say that we're novices, and we're not trying to jump commentary. It's very much a satire comment. So, and we don't live to manipulate markets, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that it is quite comical what's happening. And when we look back, though. And here's the real lesson. If you look back, you will see the same trends. You will see it, like Jay said, in property, where industries have sparked off and just gone berserk. And you will see the same thing pre-Black Wednesday, I think it was, in the market. And if you look back early enough, or even just watch one of the new Hollywood blockbusters, The Wolf of Wall Street, you will see the same sorts of things going on in different ways. So the history doesn't repeat itself, but it's an incredible mimic.
It's incredible. One movie, if you haven't seen it, ladies and gents, to watch is The Big Short. If you want to understand what happened in the GFC and the global financial crisis and the lending meltdown around the world, go watch that one. It'll curl your toes. Thankfully, the Australian banking system and lending processes are, in the top 5 in the world, and were at that time, and they're even tighter now. Always say that to people, like, just be thankful. Sometimes it's really annoying that you can't lend money because you want to, but on the flip side, it actually keeps our economy fairly safe in that respect. There's other reasons why it'd be unsafe, but not from bad lending practices. But anyway, yeah, there you go. Watch a couple of those movies. What is it, Andy? The Big Short. What's the Wolf of Wall Street? I'm sure there's a couple of others. So yeah. What's the one with the guy who did the biggest scam in history? He ran that fund. He called it the Black Box Fund.
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, the Bernie Madoff one. Yeah, what was it? Billions of dollars or something. That
I haven't seen a movie based on it, but then again, I'm not the biggest movie buff. But old Bernie. Yeah. Oh, Bernie. Nobody saw Bernie coming, did they? Weekend at Bernie's. Maybe that was the movie.
Wall Street. Yeah, Wall Street. Watch Wall Street. So, yeah, folks, listen, like Andy said, we've spent a fair bit of time in our swim lanes when it comes to investing and understanding, certain investment principles and ideals. But certainly we both believe we're sort of outside the box thinkers. We both believe the world of blockchain and crypto and decentralized control of currency is here to stay forever. But what will happen, mark my words, is that governments will need some way of influencing in some way, shape or form. And it's only early days that the toe-to-toe, the back and forth of how this is going to roll. Governments and banks, and to be honest, that's how, that's why Bitcoin and the blockchain came to life, because of the desire not to be controlled by nations and banks and manipulated by, the big institutions. But it'll be interesting. Anyway, we'll see how we go, Andy. But what's on the budget? Let's get to the budget, Andy.
Let's get to the budget. Look, there is way too much that's in the news in the budget. So I'm going to touch on some key stuff, and I reckon we can have an in-depth conversation. I've prepared an absolute cracker presentation for you and your private clients and for mine, which we'll be presenting probably next week or over the next coming weeks, because it seems innocuous on the front, but there's some great stuff in here. So look, can't wait to share inside the group, because we can actually get a little bit more into the strategy side of the equation. But I might drop a couple of thought patterns and some thought bombs on everybody listening tonight, so you can start to dissect this. Before I do, though, one of the big caveats that I'm going to go into is that the budget is not ratified yet. It's got to go through the House of Reps. It's got to go through the Senate. And while the government has a good majority in the House of Reps, it does not have a good majority in the Senate. And the Senate is where this is going to have to go through. So some of what we're going to talk about is not legislated. Some of it already is legislated. And here's the thing about the budget is it's like Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. You don't talk about the budget. Well, I'm not quite sure where I was going with that. But what I was trying to say, it seemed like it was going to line up in my head, but it didn't quite go there.
Your first wind up, mate, it's affecting you too quickly. All right.
It was what's not in the news, which I think was the most powerful part. And that's what I think I had a slide in here where I said what's not in the news. Because what's not in the news was actually probably a little bit more prolific than what was in the budget. Because there was a whole lot of stuff that they didn't talk about, which hasn't made headlines, which is really, really interesting. So, look, I'm just gonna smash through a couple of these things here. It's brought to us via BT and AdsGuard, these slides, and also by Net Wealth. These are ones that I have that were part of presentations. I don't want to plagiarize that they're mine, but I'm going to highlight some points in and around some of the data. One of the key things that was not in the news, Jace, is that the total super balance, or the balance transfer cap, which is the maximum amount that we can have in superannuation without being taxed, was indexed and went up in 2021 to 2022. We are now able to have $1.7 million each tax-free in super, done the right way. So this also cascades down to defined benefit and also defined benefits caps for those of you with defined benefit pensions. So effectively, that affects a whole raft of things. But ultimately, the key thing to take away from that what was not in the budget is the indexation of the balance transfer cap. So now per couple, we've got 3.4 million tax-free. Super cool stuff. The next major one that people may not be aware of is that our concessional contributions for next year, and this is a kick-ass little strategy that you and I have been working on with many people, Jace, is the concessional contribution cap, including the carry forward, or the bring forward rather, is going up. That was not in the news, but this is what's going to be happening as at July 1st, 2021-22. As at the non-concessional contribution caps. This is where indexing kicks in. No longer is it $100,000 per year if you are eligible. It is now $110,000 worth of post-tax contributions that we can put in if you are eligible, which means that our carry forward has gone from $300,000 to $330,000. So this is more money that we can get into superannuation. There's a whole lot of small business.
You do that in 1 year? can you do that in 1 year? I had a question the other day. So 110 plus 330 equals 440,000 in 1 year. If that was part of your plan and you were eligible,
it's a bring forward of 3 years. So you could do one contribution at the end if you are eligible, and there's a couple of criteria. One of which your superannuation balance needs to be under 500,000 per member to do this. But if it's under 500,000, there's a few other things that you need to align with. So chat to your advisor in order to get this right. But you could put 100,000 in this year, and then you can bring forward 3 years, which means that next year, if you delayed it, the 1st of July next year, you could potentially bring forward $330,000. But then you can't make a contribution for 3 years in a non-concessional way. Which
you can
means
still make your concessional. Yeah.
You can still make your concessional. You can still make your salary sacrifice, your SGC contributions, and your personal deductible contributions up to the cap, which is the new 27,500. And if you're working with us and working on some of the cool stuff that we do behind the scenes, which is just this stuff is making it even cooler. Then you can access potential sort of carry forwards of this as well, which is really, really interesting.
So I love it. It's so powerful, Andy. Like you and I talk about this all the time. Gang, this is not individual advice. Obviously, you need to reach out to your advisor and sort of make sure you qualify and all those sorts of things. But, where else in the Australian tax system are you able to have investments that are, tax-free in retirement? Once you're in the retirement phase, then you can draw a tax-free income from them at this point in time. And on the way in, the taxing of the money is, super low in comparison to other places. And for the business owners listening in, many business owners, Andy, you and I have chatted to, don't take care of their super very well. And, this idea, if you're in business and you haven't got more than 500 grand in your super and, you're less than 15 years from retirement, well, this stuff is absolute gold for you, because you can get the proverbial finger out and crack on. But those in the PAYG world, again, some of this stuff is great also.
Is there what? Yeah, there's some cracker stuff that we're going to go through. There's more that we're going to get into in the webinars that we're going to run, mate, but there's some cracker stuff that we're about to share in and around that space, which I think people will really, really sink their teeth into. Yeah.
But, it's all about investing. It's all about the idea of making sure your money and wealth is in places that are efficient. And it's always working, gang. I talk about this all the time. Andy does also, talking about, where is your money and what's it doing? And it should be working for you. It should be making 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10%, every year. And if it's not, consider learning how to do that as you roll forward as an investor. So nice.
That's alleged. Investment returns, Jay. So just check alleged investment returns.
All right, mate. All right.
So, mate, that's some interesting stuff. Note that small business guys, you got to get around this. Reach out, let us know. There's so much cool stuff in there for small business. I'm going to jump across into the tax reductions. Because effectively we've got the tax rates are changing.
Put yourself back up the top, Andy. Put yourself back up the top. You're low income tax. Yeah, you're better up there.
There you are. The low income tax offset has been pushed forward for another year. They were going to rip it out. Remember, Jace, we were talking about one of the sneaky little tax manoeuvres that the government did a little bit earlier on in the year, in the last budget that was freaking whatever it was October or whatever. So they put the low-income tax offset, they pushed that forward for another year, which ostensibly means if you're earning under $120,000, you're going to be better off. They're not going to leave it there, of course. Did they bring it forward? No, I haven't got the other slide in there. I thought I put it in. But they're ultimately, now this, again, was what was not in the news because they didn't talk about this because this was already put in the budget. And this is what happens when you can do 2 budgets in 6 months. You can really go whack, whack. But ultimately, they were going to bring the tax rate down to 30% by 2024, 30% up to $200,000. Now, Jason, that makes it incredible and wipes out a lot of need for bucket companies and funky strategies that we use with many people in order to pass on. And should that happen, I really hope that happens, and I really hope that even if they do have a change in government, they don't come in and bastardize that. I actually think it's potentially a smart move because they put that in there, and if they don't get re-elected, Jace, and then Labor come in and repeal it, they'll just come back and go, well, you bastards lifted the tax rate. So I actually think that Frydenberg...
It's a smart move. It's a snooker move or a checkmate move.
It is brilliant. And it's not often that I'll sit there and I'll compliment the treasurer or any politician these days. But, mate, what a maneuver. You just slip it in there just after the next term's going to finish, and you kind of go, well, there's a massive tax cut for everyone. And deal with that when you get the biggest budget deficit that's come from a pandemic. And so, but mark my words, Jace, this is what will happen is you won't end up with taxes. And you've heard me say this before. Jace, what are we going to end up with? Not taxes. We will have
levy.
We will have levies.
Levies.
we will have levies. And we didn't increase taxes, but we introduced
here's a levy on this and here's a levy on that.
That's right.
Well, Andy, one thing I do know about, the tax system, it has been complained about bitterly by the entrepreneurial section of Australia for many years. One of our, I wouldn't say heroes, but one of our, mentors in, a positive or a negative light, depending on which way you look at him, Kerry Packer. He constantly talked about why would other countries bring their capital to Australia when the Australian government's tax laws are just insane, complicated and difficult to understand and invest in Australia with. And I think the behind the scenes picture, hearing some of the other rhetoric, Andy, that the government's been talking about, it'll be the concept of attracting high earning people to Australia. It'll be the concept of attracting companies to Australia to invest in Australia, simplifying the tax system. They've got a plan to get this budget under control. The budget deficit's going to be pretty big. So we need another 10 million people in the country, all earning 200 grand, and contributing to the taxes to pay off that sucker.
So somebody's got to come and pay the bill, mate. And it's, bring our friends in. Come on in. There you go. Come on in. And here's a tax. Come in. Here's the levy.
Yeah, everyone's allowed in the country as long as you can earn 200 grand and pay the tax. I love it, But it is, no matter which way you slice it, Australia is just too big for the population to have an efficient tax system. Unfortunately, it's the infrastructure is just so far and spread. The population is not big enough to give the country enough revenue from its population to keep taxes low. That's just the mathematics. So, I'm a big fan of another 10 million or 20 million people in Australia. I think economically that makes Australia strong, and also it's great for the property market. So, bring on another 20 million people.
And I reckon we should pose this in Parliament. It won't get past the House of Reps or the Senate for obvious reasons. But if we don't get immigration, just get rid of half of the politicians, because then we won't need.
Dead right. Yeah.
And I won't go into what we were talking about a few weeks ago about how much money actually gets spent back into the economy. I'm not even sure whether it was in this forum or a different one where we shared how much money for the Shire in and around some of the major shires around Melbourne of how much of taxpayers' money actually hit the ground. And
no, I think you were talking
shires,
about that idea, Andy, but we didn't share it, I don't think, on Wine and Wisdom.
So allegedly, because I don't have the statistics in front of me, but look them up. In some of the metropolises and the shires in and around Melbourne, the wage bill was in excess of 58% of total tax revenue collected for the local shires. In my mind, that's criminal, because if you had a business and your business was had 50% of your running or 58% of your running costs was your talent, you wouldn't have a business for long.
No, you wouldn't have a business. You wouldn't survive.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, look, there's so much more. We're going to sync our because I know the time's ticking on. I really want to chat with this one with you, Jace. But Medicare levy, here's some great stuff. Chat with Jace's team, chat with your advisors and stuff, because in tax minimization world, like they've increased thresholds for. Let me just put it up here so you can have a little bit of a read ski. I've got to jump out of this browser and into another. I'm getting too excited and not managing my technology, but there we go. So they've increased the threshold. So for individuals, they've increased, and for families, for additional dependents, they've increased it per child. And for single seniors and pensioners, the thresholds increased for the Medicare levy. So for those of you who don't know, the Medicare levy is what pays for Medicare. Well, pays for a few other things too, but let's not get into the politics of it. So they've actually increased the threshold, which means that if you can use deductions to get below a certain level, the low income tax offset, which we just spoke about, is going to be your friend. It'll give you an extra up to $1,080, I think it was, off the top of my head, ballpark.
Yep.
And then if they bring this in and they get this through the House, then or through the Senate, then you will be able to claw back an extra 2%. An extra 2% if you just are able to get your deductions to the right level, minimize your tax, keep more in your pocket, less in the pocket of people who don't care how they spend it. And the way that they spend it is to produce $1 million, a quadrillion dollars worth of billion-dollar bills, as one of our ridiculous politicians did more recently. Hopefully none of our listeners are friends. Small business tax concessions. Let's talk about this next week. We're going to have likely going to have old mate Paul Sidorovsky, hope on. He hasn't guaranteed us yet, but we'll put through a few rib punches in and see if we can steal time away from his family and get him in, and we'll talk about all things business tax concessions. But instant asset write-off is gone, but basically they've just opened it up and gone, you can have as much as you want. Right? You can write it off in 1 year on eligible assets, and you need to know what eligible assets are. Yeah. So let's chat about that next week in a huge amount of detail, and let's get stuck into this one, because this one is the one that is causing a lot of confusion and that I'm already seeing play out. And I'll give credit where credit's due. This is a general use document by Net Wealth, but we're taking responsibility. Please see your advisor or your accountant to ratify any information that we're chatting about. But here we go. So first home buyers. People have been saying already, Andy, I can take 50 grand out of my super and inject that into a deposit for my first house. And that's the way that you would believe it. And ladies and gentlemen, this is politics. This is politics. What they say, you've always got to read behind the eyes. And there's not a lot going on behind the eyes. That is in the interest. No, sorry, I won't take too much piss out of the politicians, but there's always the way things are presented are not always the way that they seem. But let's just demystify it if we can. So, yes, they've said for the, First Home Buyers Super Saver Scheme. First Home Buyers Super Saver Scheme. It's got a good ring to it, doesn't it? They love their acronyms. So it has increased from 30,000 to 50,000. That much is true if it gets through the Senate. So it could become law. Contributions. So what is eligible? And this is the real thing. And so we're going to have to talk terminology here. There are a few different types of contributions. There are your SGC contributions, which are your employer contributions. So if you are employed by an employer, you have SGC contributions. That is your 9.5%, right, of your salary. Those you cannot withdraw from your super. right? So your SGC, no, they're not allowing you to take that. You have your salary sacrifice, which is if you choose to through your employer, you put extra contributions in. Well, then those are up for grabs. Those are a possibility. You then have post-tax contributions, which are called non-concessional contribution, which is where you take money out of the bank and you put it into your super fund without paying any tax on the way through. It's tax paid money that you can use 100% of, right? And then you have got personal deductible contributions, which is most of the business owners out there. This is what we do a lot. We take money from our own pocket at the end of the year, we throw it into super and we claim a tax deduction for it. Now, this is a part of an eligible concessional contribution. So 85% of eligible concessional contributions we can use. Now, this is so complicated. It's just fantastic for people who love complicated stuff. It just makes life a pain in the ass for everybody else. So there are other rules that apply, but there are limits to an annual cap of $15,000. So each year there's an annual cap of $15,000 that you can use towards this. So, and it has been in play now, I think, July 17, which is 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 2021. So that is potentially $60,000 if every year you made additional contributions to super. Now, what I know about the world is that is virtually fucking no one, right? It is virtually no one is eligible for this right now. No one is eligible right now, or very few people. I'm exaggerating. All right, so you've pretty much picked up what I'm putting down. Everybody, light up the comments if you are picking up what I'm putting down, and let's have a discussion about this, Jace, because this is really interesting. Because assuming they keep this, and this is a long-term strategy, and what I was going to say about your commentary earlier on about them adjusting LVRs and things like that, that's going to take them time, right? Because that's done through APRA, it's done through prudential regulation, it's done through the Banking Act of 1959. Now, that is a whole world, and they don't have a royal banking inquiry now to hang their opinions on and make massive changes. So although I agree with what you're saying and what the possible direction might be with that, I wonder whether the government are going to have time to focus in that area because they're too busy spending money. And mark my words, I haven't said it yet, but I should have said it right from the beginning. It's an election budget. God. So it's like somebody who's just been given $1 million and they're just trying to figure out how to spend it as fast as they fucking can and win as many friends as they possibly can while they're doing it. There is very little in this budget that is going to build on pandemic proofing moving forward. And it's going into and I've got to be careful here because it is going into very worthy areas, right? Very worthy areas, aged care, into equality, right? It's going into really worthy areas. But those in the way that they've spent it in those worthy areas, I don't believe is going to have the maximum impact on pandemic proofing the economy. I do think it'll have the maximum impact on winning some more votes. But I hope
them re-elected. Yeah.
And look, so I'm all for the theme behind them, but I just don't think that it's a pandemic proofing budget. Let's just call it for what it is. I'm all for it. I want to make that absolutely clear. I'm all for equality. I'm all for equal rights. I'm all for boosting up our mental health system. I think it's, it needs so much work in our aged care. I'm all for all of those things, but I don't believe it's a pandemic proofing budget. I believe that it is an election budget. I want all of those things, but I'm just calling it for how I see it. So, mate, so let's just assume that this housing, this using super, the first home buyer super saver thingy, let's just assume that this scheme, it's a scheme. Never trust a scheme. A scheme is a scam.
It's in the word. It's in the name. It's a scheme. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll regulate themselves on this one. So here's what the world of possibilities could be, and here's why it's a great idea to get in touch with your advisors and chat about these things, because the way that I see it now, and there's not been a lot of talk about it, but we know that there's been products built around this previously, because this isn't a new initiative, this is an expansion of one.
Yeah.
Now, everyone goes, oh, we can access 50,000, how wonderful they are. So again, got to read between the lines, delve a little bit deeper. But if I was if I was a young couple of which I am. I'm part of a young couple. But if I was a part of a young couple, first home buyer, I'd be going, how can we use this to our advantage? So if it does pass through to the additional $50,000, there's some potential, and you might look at it and go, well, do we take the risk that this is still going to be around in 4 years' time? And do we go, well, we'll put $15,000 extra contributions into super, because let's just say we've got a $75,000 taxable income, right? And we go, okay, well, if we put $15,000 into super as a personal deductible contribution, that's going to reduce our marginal tax rate down from 34 cents in the dollar, and it's going to reduce that down to 15 cents in the dollar going into superannuation. Now, if that's in super, then we can access up to 85% of what we've put in there. And in the meantime, it's earning a good rate and it's benefiting our future. And if we do that for 4 years and then pull that money back out, well, it's a forced saving scheme. So I'm all for that. You're all for that, right? Putting money
100%.
away, learning how to save, managing your cash flow. But I think that there are really some potential there's some great potential in here, because so here's the fun stuff, Jace, because what ends up happening with this is, let's just say, and you have to speak to your advisor about this, but I love just going forward with the strategy and just dreaming. And none of this is legislated yet, so don't do it, right? Chat to your advisors. But imagine, right, we've got Medicare levy subsidies. Depending on how many kids you have, depending on what your family situation is, you might be able to knock off 2% off your tax rate. You might be able to. You've also got the low income tax offset, which has been prolonged for another year. Again, if you get to a certain level, you're going to get that benefit of the $1,000, right? So if you use your investment smart enough, and there may be some extra contributions, so maybe you don't have a house, maybe you've got an investment property, or maybe you're getting into an investment property or whatever with other deductions, and you pull your tax rate back down, and you've made your contributions to super, so you got 15 cents in the dollar rather than your marginal tax rate, but that's brought you below the 50. Then you've got your other deductions, which has brought you down. You're now paying 2% less because you got your Medicare levy back, and you got your low income tax offset. Well, all of a sudden you got 2% back. You got $1,000 from the government, and you're saving for the purchase of your principal place of residence. Then if you use some of the wonderful tactics of offset accounts and all of this sort of stuff that sits in between, to me, there is some incredible strategies that can be utilized to really accelerate young people into the market. And even not young people, because a lot of people these days haven't bought properties. You might be an expat who spent a long time overseas, came back to Australia. You've never owned a property out here, or you've just been running around different cities. If they bring this in and they show that they're not going to piss fart around and mess around with it, I think there's actually some incredible merit to this, and I'm really, really excited about how this could be utilized as tactics for people to be able to get into their first homes, get into the market, maybe turn into investment property in the future. There's all sorts of strategies around here, but this is some of the reasons why I'm so excited about this budget. Initially, I looked at it and I went, pretty boring. But then when I went back and I looked and I went, all of the stuff that they didn't say, which is now taking effect, when you start to roll those things together, mate, my brain starts ticking around and going, there is so much up for grabs here. And the biggest potential to screw this up is for either government to start to fight around terms around it. But if they just consolidate these changes and consolidate these positions, these can really benefit medium to long-term strategies for people out there in everyday Australia. And I reckon this is absolutely 100% one to watch. I reckon they will screw it up right royally in how you implement it, because it's already complicated how to do it, and you will need professionals to guide you through it.
I was going to say that, Andy. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for let's face it, good quality financial planning advice could help extremely with this sort of thing. So I think that's a good thing. I think that for me that would be great. We've got a few people rocking up late. We've got Ryan dialing in from YouTube. Good to see you, Ryan. Harry, mate, good to see you, brother. Dialing in from Sydney. But a couple of questions. Alison was talking about putting money into extra super. She's in the defence. So, Andy, you can have, 2 or 3 different super accounts, right? So you can have the extra contributions. You can actually start another super, and maybe just quickly let them know what that means. You don't just have one. It's not a super account. It's what's it called?
It's a
super fund.
Member account. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you could have 2. You could have 2 funds.
You can have 5, you can have 10, you can have 15, you can have 20. Some people have.
You can partner up with family. I don't know if everyone listening in, then this is the stuff that Andy and I love, and we share this with our private clients all the time when you dive deep into the details of this stuff. Andy and I could join up and we could actually have a 2-member super fund together. Like Andy and I could do one together if we wanted to. The limits are how much money you can get into them, but you can have up to a 6-member. I'm pretty sure, just correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, it used to be 4 and now it's 6.
Yep. It was 5 and now it's 6.
Yep. So you can have 6 people in one fund. And, I do that with my family. And so there's some benefits for me on how I do that with my mum and dad. I have to look after them. And so we work out how to contribute money in there legally, and then they can get money out in a tax-free, efficient way. And the assets we own in there, when they pass away, I get to keep. And in the meantime, they've been able to live off the income. And so instead of using after-tax cash dollars, we're using before-tax dollars or low-tax dollars and managing that really smartly. So, Alison, there might be a conversation with your advisor, whoever that is, to think about that. If you've got this spare cash flow and you wanted to start another fund, you can do that as you go. So Ben asked a quick question.
I haven't thought it through yet, but here's whoever you work with, Alison, here's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it yet, but I'm thinking if it's in and around the first home buyers, I'm thinking that maybe a separate account would be a good idea, because then you can isolate the types of contributions. Now, I haven't thought it through, but that would be the question that I'd ask. So I'd go, is it worth opening up a different account, a separate account, if I'm going to do it for the first home buyers? Again, haven't thought it through. That's something that you should not do, but you should ask your advisors about, because I'm pontificating it myself.
Listen, Andy, I'd already thought about, a few little things. And as you were talking about it myself, I'm thinking, wow, if you planned that right, low tax on the way in, no tax on the way out, buy your own home, make a gain, sell it capital gains tax free.
Right, I'm going to stop you there, Jace, because I've made you so excited, and you're going to say something which is going to get me.
I'm going to get pumped here, right? Okay, quick, delete that bit.
but I hear where you're going, and look, and we're kind of having a bit of fun with this, but there's actually limitations of what Jason and I can say in a public forum, and especially when it's here, we're a little bit hamstrung, or at least I am. Jason's not, so I've got to be a little bit.
I'm a bit loose, but Andy's regulated, gang, so he has to be conservative. I can get a bit loose, but it's allegedly, and it's not. But
great questions. And I think that's what everyone should be doing, and asking the questions of their advisors and getting in front of this and kind of going, what about this? How can we? Could we use this? If we can use this, how can we use this? I heard Andy talk about, do we have a separate fund? Is that a good idea? That's what we want to be doing with this, is making sure that you're asking those people in your life the right questions.
Totally, mate. I did many years ago. It was probably 6-7 years ago. I went to, it was a bit of a sort of a boring straighty 180 seminar. It used to be in person back in the olden days. And the commissioner.
Face to face.
Face to face back in the old days. The head of the ATO was speaking. And basically his opening line was, we believe nearly every Australian doesn't claim anywhere near as enough tax deductions that they're entitled to. So he was, I think it was like 98.3% of Australians actually claim less than they're entitled to in tax deductions. So it's like you and I, we love that stuff. It's like, gang, it's the game of what you keep, not what you make. Like this is, just wealth is what you keep, not what you make. You can make $1 million, but if you've got a useless accountant or a useless financial planner, you'll give away $600,000 to the government, and then you end up with 400 grand. It's bloody absolutely useless. So Ben asked a quick question. The extra money, could you put in your super? Could you put in your offset? Yeah, absolutely you could, Ben. The challenge right now for me, Ben, number one, that money would have to be after tax. And, if you're on a 30% plus tax rate, or even higher than a 15% tax rate, it starts to become inefficient. And then money in the offset account offset account's pretty cheap these days, 1 or, maybe 2.5 to 3.5%. For the first time in my 24 years playing around with real estate, offset accounts are kind of like, oh shit, that's not really that attractive. But yes, Ben, if you've got cash sitting around doing nothing, it should be in your offset account. End of story. It's the best place for it to be, especially.
You'd be asking the question now, will that legislation get ratified? Will it come into force? Will it be around for a little while? And then could I be creating a hell of a lot more tax advantages, instant money, and could I then get it back in order to then get a house if I want a house in the future? I think that is the question you would now be asking. Or you'd be saying, could I invest that money in an area that I feel that I'm happy with the amount of risk that I'm taking in order to earn more on a post-tax basis than what the interest rate is, which is 3 or 2%.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that it's probably getting a little bit like this. I wonder if I can actually bring this sucker in.
We're getting to that time of the night, Andy. But listen, we've got a fan here, Mrs. Fenton. Great to see you. Love you right back.
Say hi to my mum for me.
Well, gang. Why don't we give that? Why don't we put a pin in that one? Andy and I could wax lyrical on this for more time, but usually we sort of try and go about an hour, 40 minutes to an hour, and finish up at about 5 o'clock because it's family time. That's why we changed the start time to around about 4, and hopefully that works for everyone. Back on Fridays, a cheeky wine, 1 glass before we go and hang with the family. Mine's done, Andy. You're still sipping.
Mostly smelling, mate. I'd be. It's been 34, 35 days or something like that. So, but just the smell of it's almost getting me there. But lovely to see some of the YouTube listeners on. So, for those of you who don't know, Jason and I, we stream this out now to YouTube. It's on Facebook. We're everywhere that you can stream to at the moment. So, it has been great to see some of you YouTubers out there, and please spread the word. Tag your friends, tag your family. This is hopefully most of you know it by now that this is Jason. There's no vested interest here. It is about just delivering information out to you guys. We love to do it. We like to take the piss out of as many people as we possibly can, including ourselves, but actually bring the reality of what's going on with a good, light-hearted sense of humor, and hopefully make it quite simple for you as well. And maybe with the things that are more complex, we just want to give you the tips so that you can go to your advisors, ask the right questions, get the right advice. And as Jason and I always say, let's make new mistakes together because we know the mistakes of the past. Well, we should. And if you don't, we're here. We'll take you through all of our war stories. We're happy to chat about it, but let's make new mistakes together. So tag your friends, tag your family, let them know that we're about. And because we'd love to we're going to keep doing it regardless, but we'd love to see more of you in and around. There's a great following that it's already got, and we appreciate it. But do your friends, do your family a favor, because quite honestly, even in my circles, there's not too many people who talk about this sort of stuff. And I know tonight we've had to be a little bit cagey because when it comes to budget, yes, there's a lot that hasn't been ratified, and there's a lot of strategies that are pinging around Jason and my head at the moment. And both of us like kids in candy stores going, oh, we can do all of this. And sure enough, when we figure out a way that we can bring it to you in a way that is nicely packaged up in a way that will be simple and easy to understand, we're going to do it. We love spending time with you, and it is absolutely a pleasure. So share it, let people know. We'd love to see you every Friday night that we're here together, Jace.
Absolutely. And maybe one day, absolutely, Mrs. Fenton, love to meet you as well. Maybe we could do a live Wealth, Wine and Wisdom from Ranch Fenton sometime soon. So we can travel.
Indeed. Oh, what a luxury. Put a big bonfire at the back and we'll make it happen.
Perfect. Well, the weekend's here. Perfect way to finish this one up. Thanks, everyone. Great to see everyone here. And awesome to hang out just for an hour or so and share this time together. So that's it, done and dusted. Andy, another Wealth, Wine and Wisdom done. Good to see you. Good to hang out with you, brother. And
good to see you, mate.
Indeed. Have a good weekend, folks.
And it's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from him. Good night.
Have a great weekend.